Think medieval women just sat around sewing? Think again. Meet Agnes, a peasant healer who faces danger head on to gather herbs at first light, haggles like a master in noisy markets, and saves lives with skills no one else has. Her world isn't the quiet domestic scene you imagine. It's raw, risky, and full of surprises. Curious how she juggles all this in a time that tried to limit her every move? Stick with us as we walk through her day from start to finish, uncovering truths about women's strength in the Middle Ages that'll change how you see history. Let's step into the first challenge Agnes faces as her day begins, long before the rest of the village even thinks about waking up. It's not just a simple errand, it's a dangerous mission into the wild for herbs that could save lives. Picture this: dawn hasn't broken yet, and she's already out the door, risking everything for a handful of plants most folks wouldn't even notice. Imagine Agnes stirring in her cramped, icy hut while the world outside is still cloaked in darkness. The cold nips at her as she pulls a threadbare shawl tight around her shoulders. There's no time to linger. Her community's health hangs on what she finds today. With a rough basket in hand, she slips out into the silent morning, driven by a purpose bigger than her own comfort. Her goal is clear: track down the herbs that heal, hidden in places only she knows, while everyone else sleeps. Here's where it gets dicey. That forest she's heading into isn't some peaceful nature trail. It's a tangled, unpredictable beast of a place. Wolves prowl through the shadows, their eerie calls cutting through the pre-dawn quiet, always on the hunt. Bandits hide among the trees, quick to spot a lone woman as easy prey for robbery or something far worse. And then there's the weight of suspicion from her own people. Whispers float around that a woman out alone at this hour must be up to no good, maybe even inviting curses or dark forces. Every step Agnes takes is a gamble, her heart racing with every rustle in the undergrowth. So why put herself through this gauntlet? Those herbs she's after, yarrow to staunch bleeding, comfrey to calm fevers, are worth more than gold in a village with no doctors or pharmacies. She alone knows the secret spots where they grow, buried under stones or guarded by thorns. Without her haul, a child's fever could spiral out of control, or a wound might rot until it's too late. Agnes isn't just foraging, she's the only line of defense her people have against sickness and injury, carrying knowledge no one else dares to claim. Here's a little tidbit to wrap your head around. Women like Agnes often knew the local plants better than anyone, a skill passed down through generations of whispered lessons. While men might have been off wielding weapons or tallying taxes, it was the women who mastered the land's secrets, knowing exactly which leaf could mend and which could kill. Their expertise wasn't inked in scrolls. It lived in their hands and memories, as vital as any sword. Picture her now, creeping through the brush, her breath shallow as branches claw at her worn skirt. Every sound, a snapping twig, a distant growl, sends a jolt through her. Is it just a harmless critter, or something with teeth and hunger? Worse, what if human eyes are watching, waiting for her to drop her guard? Yet she pushes on, driven by the thought of those back home who need what she carries. Modern life makes this hard to fathom, doesn't it? If you're under the weather, relief is just a quick trip or click away. But for Agnes, there's no safety net that could spell life or death, a burden most of us couldn't shoulder before our morning coffee. So, what keeps her going through this brutal start to her day? Here's the kicker. Agnes braves these dangers every single morning, a feat of grit most in her village wouldn't even consider. Her courage isn't just admirable, it's the backbone of her community's survival. With her basket finally full, she turns her steps toward the village, ready to face a whole new battlefield. As Agnes makes her way back from the forest, the village comes into view, and she's already gearing up for the next challenge. It's time to tackle the marketplace, where she'll prove her mastery over trade and wield a kind of economic power most folks in her time wouldn't expect from a woman. Think medieval markets were just for men? Think again. Agnes is about to show everyone how it's done. By mid-morning, the village square is a chaotic mess of noise and smells. Shouts of vendors, the clatter of pots, and the stench of livestock fill the air as Agnes finds her spot by a rickety stall. Her basket overflows with herbs, a bit of knitted work, and maybe a small jar of honey if luck was on her side. She's not just here to offload her goods, she's got to barter for essentials like grain, salt, or a scrap of cloth to mend her family's tattered clothes. Every single trade matters when you're not sure where the next meal is coming from. The crowd swarms around her, farmers with dirt-caked boots, weavers lugging rough wool, and apprentices giving her goods a skeptical glance. No room for hesitation. Her family's survival hinges on how she handles this today. Let's talk about the heat she's facing. She's up against seasoned merchants who've been haggling forever and customers who sneer at the thought of a woman knowing a fair deal. They try to lowball her, muttering she should stick to home chores. But Agnes doesn't flinch. She's got a knack they don't see coming. Part stubborn charm, part razor-sharp wit. They think they've got the upper hand, but they're about to learn she's not so easily fooled. You wouldn't believe how sharp she is with every exchange. Agnes knows the worth of each item in her basket, down to the tiniest sprig of lavender or leftover crumb she traded for earlier. A bundle of fever-few for aches? That's at least a sack of barley if the timing's right. A pot of burned salve? She'll wait for a decent offer, like a few eggs or dried meat. She's not just guessing, she's reading the crowd, spotting desperation or bluffs in their eyes. Her family's winter stash depends on nailing these deals, and she almost never misses the mark. History shows women like Agnes were no small players in village trade. Records from back then reveal they sold surplus veggies, spun wool for market, or offered remedies only they could whip up. This wasn't petty cash. It kept families fed when harvests tanked or taxes hit hard. Even with rules often tying women to a man's say-so, they carved out space in the economy, working angles men didn't bother with. Imagine this. Agnes stares down a burly baker across the muddy lane. He's grumbling over her price for dried mint, offering a pitiful scoop of grain. She flashes a sly smile, mentioning how his wife raved about her last herb batch for stew. She casually breaks down what his grain's really worth against her goods, and soon enough, he's handing over twice what he intended. Her smirk stays put as she pockets the extra. Here's a neat bit of trivia. Old market logs often list women, especially widows or healers like Agnes, as key traders with rare offerings. Unique herbs or salves gave them a real edge, a taste of freedom in a world rigged against them. They weren't just vendors, they were essentials, meeting needs no one else could. So, how does a humble herb gatherer outplay veteran traders? Here's the real surprise. Agnes holds more economic sway than many men around her through these trades, securing her family's needs and even aiding neighbors with her swaps. With a few hard-earned goods tucked away, she's ready to shift gears, stepping into a role where her skills face an even greater test. As the marketplace bustle fades behind her, Agnes hurries toward a role where lives hang in the balance. By midday, she's deep into her work as a healer and midwife, pulling off miracles that would leave modern doctors speechless. There's no time for rest after trading in the square. She's thrust into situations where every decision counts, with no fancy tools or hospitals to fall back on. Let's follow her into a neighbor's hut and witness the kind of crisis most of us can't even picture facing. It's barely past noon when a frantic boy pounds on her door, his eyes wide with fear. A young mother nearby is struggling through labor, and things are going wrong fast. Agnes doesn't pause for a second. She snatches her herb bundle, some rough cloths, and rushes down the muddy village paths. In a world where trained physicians are almost unheard of, she's the only hope this family has. Stepping into the dim, smoky hut, the tension hits like a wave. The mother's pained cries pierce the air, and anxious relatives hover, wringing their hands, unsure if they'll welcome new life or face tragedy today. The situation turns grim quickly. The labor has dragged on for hours, the mother growing paler and weaker with each gasp. Whispers ripple through the small crowd outside, muttering about curses or angry spirits plaguing the village. Superstition weighs heavy here, adding to the suffocating atmosphere. But Agnes tunes it out, her focus locked on the woman before her. There's no room for panic, even as the risks mount. If she slips up, both mother and child might not make it to sunset. Let's talk about what's on the line. Without Agnes, this family has no shot. There's no emergency line, no backup plan. She's got nothing but the herbs she gathered at dawn, a bowl of hot water, and years of hard-earned know-how. Maybe she's got some willow bark for pain or chamomile to ease nerves, but that's the extent of her resources. Modern stuff like sterile gear or meds, not even a thought. Still, she's the one standing between a joyful moment and a heartbreaking loss. History backs this up. Women like Agnes were the heart of medieval medicine. Midwives and healers learned through stories and hands-on practice, passed down from mothers to daughters in hushed tones over countless births. Texts like the Trotula, linked to Trota of Salerno, reveal how much they knew about childbirth and women's health. Even figures like Hildegard of Bingen mixed faith with herb lore, showing how vital women's knowledge was when no one else could help. Imagine this. Agnes keeps her cool, even as the room feels like it's shrinking. She mixes a quick herb blend to dull the mother's pain, measuring by instinct with steady hands. She murmurs soft prayers, partly to calm the family, partly to ease their fears of unseen forces. Her eyes stay sharp, assessing every moment, deciding in an instant what's next. Chaos swirls, but she's the anchor holding it all together. Here's a neat bit of trivia. Women healers often outranked knights or priests in trust during a crisis. A sword couldn't cure a fever, and prayers didn't always mend a wound. Agnes's real-world skills, honed by raw experience, made her the one neighbors turned to, whether it was a twisted ankle or a baby in distress. So, how does she handle such impossible pressure? Here's the real kicker. Agnes makes life-saving calls in a split second, her calm hands more crucial than any weapon. As the day wears on, she's already preparing to share her hard-won wisdom in a way that shapes her village, even under watchful, skeptical eyes. With the midday crisis behind her, Agnes turns her attention to a quieter but equally vital task in the afternoon. It's time to share the insights she's gathered over years of struggle, shaping her village through education and influence in ways you'd never expect. Think medieval women had no say in learning or teaching. Think again. Agnes is proof that knowledge wasn't just for nobles or monks. Let's sit in on her subtle lessons and see how a few words can carry real power. By early afternoon, Agnes is perched on a worn stool outside her modest hut, a stack of torn tunics in her lap for mending. A small group gathers, village kids with dirt-streaked faces from morning work, and a few women, their hands rough from endless tasks, eager for any useful tip. There's no classroom, no books, just Agnes chatting as her needle weaves through fabric. She points to a bundle of feverfew drying nearby, teaching how to steep it for stubborn headaches. Then, she spins a tale of a sly fox from her grandmother's day, sneaking in lessons of caution amid the giggles. This isn't formal schooling, but it's the kind of learning that keeps her people going. Let's talk about the resistance she's up against. Not everyone approves of her sharing like this. Men trudging by toss grumbles her way, muttering that women should stick to kitchen work and not stir up ideas. Society here loves its boxes, and the church doesn't help, setting strict limits on who learns what. Real education is for priests or lords' sons, not a peasant woman with a needle. Whispers float around that too much knowledge makes a woman trouble, a risk to order. Agnes catches those cutting glances but keeps her voice steady, refusing to be silenced. You wouldn't believe the weight her quiet words carry. She teaches the kids to spot feverfew by its jagged leaves, burning the image into their minds. She warns of nightshade's deadly bite with a dark story of a boy who ignored the danger. The women perk up as she shares a trick to rescue sour milk, a small fix that could save a scarce meal. Every lesson is hands-on, ready to use the next day for easing pain or stretching food. Modern comforts like online guides or schools? Non-existent. Agnes is their only source, bridging gaps no one else touches. History shows this wasn't rare. Most peasant women couldn't touch formal learning, locked away in convents or noble houses. But they weren't clueless. In villages like this, skills flowed from mothers to daughters in moments just like these, over hearths or looms. They learned herb remedies, weaving sturdy thread, even tending livestock for extra eggs. These weren't jotted in books. They were spoken, repeated until they stuck, keeping families alive when no outsider stepped up. Imagine this. Agnes turns learning into play, crafting rhymes for the kids like feverfew for fever's ache, brew it strong for head's sake. They stumble over the chant, laughing as a man passes with a cold stare. She doesn't waver, threading her needle without missing a beat. Her quiet strength teaches more than herbs. It shows resilience. Here's a fun fact. Historians note women like Agnes were the core of village wisdom. They guarded know-how on cures and food hacks, stuff that held communities together through lean times or sudden illness. Without them, disaster loomed closer. So, how does her teaching keep chaos at bay? Here's the real impact. Agnes builds a safety net against hunger and sickness with every shared skill, a lifeline no one else provides. As the light begins to fade, she prepares for an evening where her voice might carry even further weight. With the afternoon's lessons still lingering in the air, Agnes readies herself for the evening, stepping into a space where faith and politics collide in unexpected ways. As the sun dips low, she's not winding down, but heading to a humble chapel on the village outskirts, where her quiet presence carries a surprising punch. Let's walk with her into the dim glow of candlelight and see how she navigates this tricky mix of spiritual devotion and village power plays. Dusk settles over the village, painting the sky a muted orange as Agnes joins the weary crowd trudging to the rough stone chapel. The evening chill bites through her worn shawl, but she's there for prayers like everyone else, though her role goes deeper than just bowing her head. Inside, the cramped space reeks of damp wood and flickering tallow candles, with folks squeezed onto hard benches or kneeling on the cold floor. The priest's voice drones through familiar chants, bouncing off the uneven walls, but Agnes stays alert. This isn't just about salvation, it's where the village's undercurrents of tension and decisions bubble up, as real as any market deal. Let's talk about the unease brewing tonight. Midway through the service, the priest drops a bombshell, a new tax from the Lord, steeper than before, due any day now. A low rumble of discontent stirs among the crowd, shoulders tensing on the benches. Farmers are already stretched thin with poor harvests. Another demand could mean starvation by spring. Agnes senses the frustration rippling around her, knowing a careless word could tip the mood into chaos or despair. From her spot among the women, she's got a chance to steer things, calming frayed tempers or quietly fanning resistance. It's a delicate balance, and she treads it without drawing eyes. You wouldn't believe the subtle influence she holds in these moments. After prayers, Agnes often huddles with other women, murmuring ideas on how to push back. She's learned to use the church as a tool, framing pleas to the Lord as humble prayers for mercy, passed through the priest who's got the manner's ear. Need a tax extension for a struggling family? Wrap it in pious words, and it might just get heard. Her advice ripples out, showing the women how to twist the rules of a system stacked against them. It's not loud protest, it's clever survival. History proves this wasn't just one woman's trick. Even peasant women back then could nudge local politics in sacred spaces like these. Church gatherings pulled everyone together. Laborers, craftsmen, even the bailiff's kin. Women, often ignored elsewhere, found their footing here, shaping opinions over shared gripes like harsh taxes or unfair laws. Their sway wasn't inked in records, but it showed in how they shifted the crowd's pulse, inching change forward. Imagine this. Agnes kneels on the gritty floor, hands folded as if lost in prayer, but her sharp eyes catch the widow beside her, barely scraping by. Under her breath, she suggests they band together, urging the priest to plead their case to the Lord about this brutal tax. Her words blend with the hymns, unnoticed by most, but they take root. By the service's end, several women nod in quiet agreement, ready to act. It's defiance cloaked in faith, and it's effective. Here's a neat tidbit. Women like Agnes often link the powerless to the powerful in these settings. With the cult of the Virgin Mary rising, they had a model of holy womanhood to bolster their cause, giving them a unique edge in a rigid world. They weren't warriors or nobles, but they could still tilt the village's course. As the night deepens, her story prompts us to reflect on the enduring strength woven through history. As the chapel's candles flicker out, let's wrap up with a final look at Agnes's incredible journey in this conclusion. Her day reveals a pattern seen across Europe. Women's work shaped survival, though often written out of texts. Their quiet power built everything, then and now, in ways we can't ignore. Share your example of a modern woman fulfilling multiple roles, like Agnes, in the comments. Hit subscribe for deep dives into stories like this, shield maidens of faith, frontier troubleshooters, bringing medieval reality to life. Agnes reminds us that power often lies in unassuming hands.